I can't quit you. Hi. And welcome to a special episode. We were talking about what we wanted to do. I mean, we've been...
It's for holidays in June.
Yeah, and what I think we wanted to do like a Pride Month video. And we rolled around a few ideas for movies. And we came up with Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, that's one I've actually never seen before.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those ones that got like memed heavily back in the day when the movie first came out.
Yeah.
And like everyone was like picking on it so bad, and of course, me being a dumbass, I was just kind of like, meh, I don't really want to watch it. Then I saw Heath Ledger in the Batman movies as the Joker, and was like, oh my god, this guy's a brilliant actor. And I was like, I want to watch everything that he's in. I went back and watched Brokeback Mountain, and I can't say much about it at the moment because we still have to call our numbers. But yeah, that's the one we picked for our Pride Month special edition of Seen by Few.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my god, I got it right.
You did. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, you know, the brain was like, it was kind of rolling it over my head. It was like, please don't fuck this up. Stick the landing for one time. But anyways.
I mean, a nice friend would just say, we can roll back and restart it if you fuck it up. But it's going on the internet, buddy.
Yeah, no. We're doing it live. But yeah, so as always, we are your humble host. He's
Nick.
And my name is Lance. And yeah, we're bringing you a little bit of Brokeback goodness. So right from the top, because we don't want to waste any of your time if you're one of those people that are just like blah, 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 whatever, get to the point. We're going to go ahead and give it our rating. So...
Would you like to go first, or you want me to go first?
You know what? I'll go first.
Okay.
So I would give this movie a solid 7.
Look at that.
Damn.
I guessed correctly.
Yeah. And how about you, Nicholas?
You know, I concur. I think I give this movie a 7 as well.
Really? Okay. I said you were going to say 5. I went safe for the middle of the road, just because I knew it was a movie that you had never seen, and these aren't the kind of movies you normally would seek out to watch.
Yeah, I don't really watch necessarily a whole lot of like romantic sort of movies or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I know your wheelhouse is like. I know you like horror. I know you like sci-fi, fantasy stuff like that. So. Yeah. But and honestly, I was like, when we were talking about like doing a Pride Month movie, I was like trying to roll around in my head like what we could possibly watch that could be in that genre. But like, there's strikingly not a lot that I could come up with.
I would have been able to name you several.
Really? Oh, okay. Well,
so I mean, one of the movies I've been trying to get you to watch, like vaguely, is But I'm a Cheerleader, and that one would have worked here as well.
Really? Okay. Well. I'm sure it's going to come up in a future video.
It's probably. That's one in which a cheerleader essentially gets sent off to a conversion camp.
I think you played me the trailer.
I played you the trailer once before, and it's silly, and it's weird.
Yeah, like it was another one of those ones where it's like a person that gets shoved into like a group that they don't want to be in, and it's like they have that revelation. It's like that's what I got from the trailer.
It's like, oh shit, I belong here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll watch it one day, but it's just but yeah, I picked Brokeback Mountain because and well, we've given our ratings. Spoilers.
So now, well, getting time for you to, if you've never seen this movie and you're like, man, I don't want spoilers to what happens to this movie, reach for your remote and pause it. Go watch the movie and coming back.
And not only that, I'll just go ahead and say, if this is a movie that, like, just because it got, like, heavily memed back in the day and you're just like, I don't want to watch this movie because, you know, like, all the dumb shit that showed up on the internet, go watch this fucking movie. It's a good fucking movie. So, anyways, on with the review.
Yeah, I hope if you're watching the Pride Month video, you're not like, oh my god, ew, gross.
Yeah, but, like, I also know that you're probably going to find those one or two people that, maybe have stumbled on these videos and they're like, okay, I kind of like these guys' candor, so, you know, I'll just let it play in the background. And then, like, in the beginning, it's kind of like, oh, we're talking about Brokeback Mountain. They're just like, ew. You know, like, first of all, if you're that person that's just like, ew, I don't want to listen to this because of the content of the movie, we don't want you as a viewer. And, I mean, we want people to watch our videos, but honestly, like, if you can't put your id aside for a few minutes and watch a piece of good cinema, I mean, you know, maybe our videos just aren't for you.
No, remember, we're not the people for you. You can go.
Yeah, we're not going to... We don't cater our material.
No, it's shit we want to watch with all the weird-ass fucking movies we've pulled up before.
Yeah.
We watch whatever we feel like we're watching.
Yeah.
And the content of a movie is not usually enough to eke me out of watching it just because, like, well, this movie's not for you. I'm like, I don't believe in that. Movies are for everybody.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, like... I am a child of the, middle 70s, 80s, so, and growing up in the 80s with the name of Lance was a very tumultuous time for me. A lot of confusion and a lot of me basically trying to, I guess, shove too far over into the other side. Like, if I'm being 100% honest, all cards on the table, I've never, I've never insulted anyone to their face, but I was kind of like, ew.
It's that overcorrecting because it gets thrown. It gets thrown at you or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like the attitude in the '80s when I was in school, and like I had a brother that wasn't like big on people that were homosexual or anything like that. So naturally you draw your persona from the people that you grow up around.
Yeah.
And my brother, good person. Like all the men in my life, they're good people. It's just you tend to go too far in one direction when it's something you don't understand, and you even go further in the direction when it's something that you just don't want to understand because you might find something out about yourself. So, and the one thing I want to say from the top is if you're limiting your life, if you're living it in a box because it's what society wants you to be, you're doing it wrong because you're passing up a life lived. So just, go out and just fucking be you. Stop acting the way you think people should act. Just be you. And that, I think, is a good segue into this particular movie. The reason I watched this flick initially, it was just like all the memes and everything that came out. Like a Family Guy had like a joke that used to make me laugh that has been since redacted, I think.
Scary Movie 4 had that joke as well about it because they meme on movies and that movie was the...
I'm just reaching for some peanuts.
Yeah. Just trying to get some peanuts.
Yeah. But like that was the big thing back in the day, was like harping on that movie because I think it was so big.
Yeah, it was a big movie. I mean, it was kind of snubbed for an award too, I think. Didn't like Crash win instead of this one?
Yes, I think, and I remember there was like Hollywood went fucking nuts.
Because who the fuck remembers Crash?
Yeah. Like I could not name one person in that movie right now.
Yeah, me neither.
I think the guy who played Casey in the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles might be in that movie, but I don't know. So, but anyways, it was a movie that when I got a little older, I met my wife, I made some friends, and found out that people are just fucking people. And you shouldn't alienate people by the way they act or you don't understand them. Like when you actually give people a chance.
Which is also when you get older and stop giving a fuck what the people think of you.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But see,
because you didn't want to watch a movie and tell your friends like, man, I really like this movie. It's like, oh, you watched that movie and get ripped on. Like when you're a teenager, that shit matters to you. When you're like in your 30s, it's like, fuck off.
Yeah, if you're in your 20s and you have your other 20-year-old friends and you're like, I really like Brokeback Mountain, next thing you know, like you become a pariah because everyone has to keep up those shields. But like I think I hit my early 30s when I first got with Amber and everything like that, and honestly, I wasn't able to drop the whole I don't give a fuck what people think thing until I hit like my 40s. Like honestly, like that, and that was the most. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna tell you too. Like the best thing I have ever done for myself in my life is when I stopped giving a fuck what people think about me. So good. I would recommend it. 10 out of 10. But yeah, I went and because I fell in love with Heath Ledger after I think it was The Dark Knight, and because I'd seen him in what was it, Taming of the Shrew or 10 Things I Hate About You.
Okay, there was also A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, Von Lichtenstein. Like those movies to me, they were campy as fuck, and I was just kind of like, eh. And then I saw him as the Joker, and yes, I'm one of those fucking people who thinks he's brilliant. Because I remember in that movie when I watched the trailer for The Dark Knight, I was like, whatever, this movie's gonna blow. And then we went and saw it in the theater, and by the end of that movie, when the credits were rolling, I was crying like a baby. I was weeping because I knew I would not be able to see that actor in anything else. And then I wanted to see Brokeback Mountain because I wanted to see what he could do. And Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie are fucking awesome.
Yeah, they're really good.
I really, really dug them.
So I guess there's one aspect of this movie that I'm not super huge on. Is generally I don't watch a lot of movies like this where it's like this is the one that takes place over the course of like 30 years or whatever, and you're just kind of seeing snippets of people's lives and it's time jump.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, I guess, a more condensed story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it took place over a couple of years and was more about like them, because really for the most part, in the beginning of the movie they're together.
Mm-hmm.
And then they like split up and be like, maybe we'll see each other again. And then it's them doing their own thing for most of the movie, and then occasionally they're back together.
Right.
So you don't get to see the chemistry between the two like leads essentially because they're off living their own fucking lives.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was more of like over the course of like a year or something like that, maybe would have seen more of them together. And
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but
mm-hmm.
like I think that to me that was part of the brilliance of the movie was
mm-hmm.
that you had these two people. Like, of course, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Jack,
mm-hmm.
He already knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And, he really liked, was it? Enos. And, then he brings that out of Enos. And, like, basically, he's right from Jump Street, just kind of like, we could be together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, the very first thing that comes out of Enos's mouth was like, society won't let us be together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get myself a wife. I'm going to get myself a job. And then, like, to me, the brilliance of, like, doing the time hop was how miserable he was
mm-hmm.
living this life that he didn't want to live because he couldn't be with the person he actually wanted to be with. Like, the first time, like, Jack comes into town, how excited he was.
Yeah,
he's like he's like sitting at the window watching like a fucking dog waiting for like the owner to come home kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like to me that was so fucking heartbreaking because it's like they get together, they go to their fishing trips where they get to be together and like they can be themselves.
I guess that was another part of the movie that I really thought was fun. Was just like when his ex-wife was confronting him. It's like I put a note in your fishing thing, and like I went in and I noticed none of the tools have been
mm-hmm.
used. I put a note to like, how much we like fish. Why'd you ever bring us back any fish?
Right.
It's like you weren't fishing on those trips.
Yeah, and I don't know who that actress was that was his wife, but like that part, like
mm-hmm.
when she confronts him for the first time, and she's like, "Get the fuck out of my house," she should have won an Academy Award. Like that part to me was very visceral, because she played the hell out of it. Like I believed that she was a fucking like person who was like just who felt betrayed.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I also don't give a fuck about awards.
No, I mean,
I'm never the person like he should have won an award or whatever because I fuck the awards.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's like it is a pageant
mm-hmm.
for them to like basically blow each other to be like I think you're a really good actor.
It's most of the movies that win are things that just aren't super interesting to me. It's like dramas are fine and all, but I'm already sad. I don't need to watch shit that makes me sad.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like, do you want to live vicariously through the sad person? Like, no, I got that covered. So that tends not to be my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to see Enos' soul get crushed and him pine for someone for the rest of his life and end up alone? It's like, not really, but I'll sit down and watch it. It's good.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like he goes into after like Jack dies, very just kind of matter of factly.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to like the parents' house or whatever, and he just goes in the closet, and then there's their 2 shirts or whatever, like when they were wearing on Brokeback. Then at the end of the movie, he's just kind of like looking at it and like, oh my god, man, poor guy. It's so sad.
Yeah, and see, I think that was, to me, I think that was the beautiful thing about the movie is that ultimately it wasn't a love story between 2 people. It was ultimately a life wasted because of societal
mm-hmm.
pressure. Is what it was to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to be different things to different people. But to me, it was like Jack knew what he wanted,
mm-hmm.
and Enos was trying to hide who he was because of what he saw when he was a kid.
Let's also wonder if because they never really go into like his sexuality per se, in that he loves Jack, but does he ever? I don't know if he's ever shown any interest in other men. I mean, I don't know if he showed much interest in women per se, but.
There was was it Jack or was it Enos who was like on the part with David Harbour?
It was Jack.
So okay, yeah, I think it was just him. I think he just liked him.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like he was tried being in a relationship with women. He had children and so forth, which I mean is not necessarily uncommon, especially in that time.
Right.
To be gay and to have a wife and children. but I don't know if that was maybe he kind of liked them a little bit. Maybe it was never there. It's just a thing they never go on into because it's not that important.
In my experience, people aren't one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's just kind of like a little bit of a mix. One of my favorite jokes was by Ron White, where he basically was talking to a friend where he's like, I like to watch, porn. And he's like, but I'm not gay. And he's like, well, do you like watching just chicks? And he's like, no, there's got to be a dick and thing. And he's like, okay, well, you're a little bit gay since you have to see the dick kind of a thing. And the guy was like, hot damn, I didn't know that about myself. Like, I still think that's one of the funniest fucking jokes Ron White has ever told. And I believe that everybody is a degree on the scale. There's nobody that's one side or the other. And to me, people who are just like, I hate gay people, and like they go out of their way and march to the fucking streets with tiki torches and shit, I think those are probably the people who are most afraid of that side of themselves.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's probably like right there on the edge. I feel like if I was Q and I could snap my fingers, and next thing you know, they're like in feather fucking boas and fishnets. They'd just be like, you know what, this feels right. Let's just go with it. And, like, everybody around me is this way, so, maybe I'll just drop my guard this one time and just be this way. But, yeah, I think, to me, that was the brilliance of the movie, is that you're watching a love story, ultimately, of people who are just living different lives because this is what society expects them to be. And, like, that's the tragedy of when you're in the now, you can kind of give up who you want to be to, like, fit this, to be an odd piece in the puzzle that doesn't fit. And then it's later in life and wisdom that comes with, I don't have that much life ahead of me, and I could have had a better life if I could have just dropped this fucking persona and just been brave enough to be who I wanted to be. But
I mean, ultimately, like, he didn't want to do it per se because I think his dad went to like show him the body of a beaten up gay man, be like, check it out, here's this beaten up gay guy, don't be like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, man, we should try to be what we want. And then Jack ends up getting murdered for essentially the same thing.
See,
and I don't think it's not known per se because I mean, the wife just kind of says like, oh, he got hit in the face with a whip, I got wheel and bled out and choked in his own blood.
Right.
But then as the audience, we get to see like what really happened.
See, I'm not sure if that's what really happened. See, to me, it was kind of like Enos was the way he was because of what he saw when he was a child. So it's like, this is what's going to happen to me if I let this side of myself out, which he probably didn't really know was there until that first night with Jack. But that first night with Jack let him know. Well, it is there.
I mean, he ended up denying it anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like after the first day, it's like that didn't happen.
Oh yeah.
No, it did.
Or it's like, what was it like? I ain't no queer or something like that.
Yeah. But it's funny because you would almost believe how he said it because he gets married, he has the kids, and then he gets the random postcard, and it's like, hey, I'm coming through town.
So happy.
Yeah, and he's just sitting at the window like. I thought that part was just so telling. It's just like, okay, you didn't honestly think about how much you missed this person until he was like, I'm randomly coming through town, and next thing you know, you're so happy. And when he doesn't show up the day that you thought, he was like miserable until he heard Jack's truck pull up, and like the way he ran out to see him, Jack fucking Twist, like he was so fucking hyped up to see him. And to me, like, it was almost like a part where, like, you see your best friend that you haven't seen in forever. Like, he was so happy and overwhelmed. And, like, that was probably the happiest he's ever been in his life because his character is a very mellow, like, down, like, very salt of the earth acting kind of guy.
Yeah, he doesn't, you don't never get much of a rise out of him emotion-wise.
He's super, like, emotionally repressed. But, like, getting back to what you said about what happened with Jack, see, I took that part of he got the news that Jack died, and she said this is what happened to him. And because of what he saw as a little boy, I think in his head, his fear was that this is what really happened. Now, I don't think we'll ever know that. And
it's left vague. I think I read on IMDb that what was it, Anne Hathaway's character or whatever was telling the story, and she kind of asked the director, like, does my character know what really happened? And Ang Lee was like, well, they shot it one way where Anne Hathaway did the scene knowing that he died because he was gay, and then they shot it with her not knowing.
I'd love to see that footage.
And then they used footage from both takes.
Okay.
So it's kind of a mix between, like, this happened, like he died, and maybe she knew what happened to him, maybe she didn't. So maybe it was just some ploy to kind of. I mean, she felt betrayed, and
it would make sense because they were getting divorced.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, I think at that point it would already been discussed that like they were getting divorced because he was no longer happy or anything like that. But like, it's just the movie to me. Like, I didn't expect to be that sad the first time I watched it because it's like you watch it and going into it, I was like, okay, it's going to be a movie about two guys that are gay, and then they're just kind of like fighting this thing, and I thought they were just going to like be secretly living their lives together, and then you find out that it's actually a fucking Greek tragedy because like they're being forced to live this persona that they don't believe in, and they're just fucking miserable. They lose all this time. It's like you could have been with the person you wanted to be with and been happy, but you chose this other life because this is what society wants you to do.
So when we'd mentioned that like this kind of was pervasive in culture at the time, people were talking about it. So what I had picked up from what this story was I thought it was two guys who were married end up like going to do a job or whatever, and then discovering it, and then like over the course of a year or whatever, end up deciding they're going to be with their wives instead just because it's easier, and that ended up not being really what the movie was at all per se. So it was just different than what I thought.
You see, I didn't know what to expect. The only thing I knew was just like the jokes and everything that I was seeing.
Yeah. Just because the people would always say like, I wish I knew how to quit you, or I can't quit you, or whatever, and bring that one up all the time.
Yeah, the Family Guy one was the two dudes were in the thing, and the horse was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in here and let these guys know the story." Oh God! And he's like, "Just run!" And like, I thought that was funny, but like that time watching that joke, that was like all I knew. It was about gay cowboys, and then like after watching the movie, it just.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a tragedy.
Yeah, and I think that was the worst part when I watched it the first time. Is like I thought that it was just going to kind of be a basic story, and then you find out that it's...
You just get to watch people be miserable
yeah.
for their entire lives for the most part.
And how they make other people's lives miserable because they're fucking miserable. Yeah. And like that was the biggest thing that like really kind of broke my heart about it, is that you could have been happy, but instead you live this life where... especially in Enos's, like every person he had to be distant with because it's not who he believed he needed to be with. But
yeah, I mean, it's even his own daughters essentially he kind of felt distant with, because like the end of the movie was him like, I'm gonna go to my daughter's wedding and be happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I gotta work. Well, they can hire another guy. Yeah, but like she knew.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like,
at least he was deeply unhappy.
Yeah, and I think that was what it mainly was, is that he's so distant and so guarded, and then finally he was just like, okay, I'm gonna do something that makes other people happy in my life, even though I'm a fucking miserable shit, and I'll go to my daughter's wedding. But yeah, it was just, that ending was so sad, where he's just sitting there looking at the jacket and like looking at the blood stains that Jack did not wash out because he really, he loves this person. And yeah, it just, the first time I watched that movie, if I'm being honest, I cried at the end of the movie because it's just so fucking tragic.
So I think another thing I found kind of interesting was like the one time that Jack shows up like with Enos, he's like, oh, I can't go, I got my girls. So he ends up going to Mexico and picking up like a prostitute or whatever. And then like the next time, so we're kind of like, well, okay, this is who Jack is, and he's trying to find it with other people, like the rodeo clown he tries to get like some sort of connection with, and it's just like the guy wants nothing to do with him,
and goes over and tells the other cowboys
about, like, yeah, look at that motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then like lastly, I think the scene with Anna Faris and David Harbour, and like him and David Harbour and Jack are sitting out on the thing, and it's like, I got a cabin up in the thing, maybe we can go up there, like maybe this guy has that sort of connection too, and Jack is just, he doesn't want it with anybody, he wants it with Enos.
Well, he was interested, you could tell he was interested.
It's kind of like, well, I could get this with someone else, but then it never seems like he takes him up on it, so it's kind of like that, well, maybe I could, but that's not who I want to be with.
Yeah. And so I just want to take a quick little pause here. So before we try not to do a whole hell of a lot of research into it, because we just want to talk about our feelings about the movie. We don't want to talk about what other people's feelings were in it.
Yeah.
But we always look up the actors because we believe the actors should get their nods.
Or at least to remember, because I know Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal, but to remember Enos Del Mar or whatever and Jack, Twist.
Twist.
Those names might get lost.
Right.
So we try to refresh actor names and whatnot. So
Well,
we go to IMDb.
Yeah, and we went to IMDb and we put the name in, and it's funny because there's a whole lot of Brokeback stuff out there that we just did not know existed, and I just feel like we need to read it off.
Just because it's funny?
Yeah, because it's fucking hilarious. So, Brokeback Mountain, 2005, Jake Gyllenhaal, Heath Ledger. There's also another Brokeback Mountain that was done in 2014.
And that was a TV movie or something like
Yeah,
that?
it looks like it's a TV movie, and it looks like it was done like, I don't know, like Spain or something like that.
Yeah.
Then there's Brokeback Mountain 2. It looks like somebody...
From 2020. It looks like one guy made it.
Yeah.
And it's about a come to Jesus moment. So like they called it Brokeback Mountain 2 to get people to watch it, only for him to like switch and be like, it gotta come to Jesus.
Yeah. And then, like the heading of the movie was... Brokeback Mountain 2, the movie. We're all gay in an old-fashioned way. And I was just like, okay.
Written by the one guy, directed by the one guy, starring by the one guy.
Yeah. There's Brokeback Zombie, which was 2009.
And when you read out what it was, it made me sad that it wasn't about two guys that go up to the mountains, discover their feelings, and then get attacked by zombies.
Zombies!
But it's something completely different. I'm like, what are you doing?
I can't quit running. There's Brokeback Cowboy. There's Brokeback Karate, which I think is the closest thing to any kind of Brokeback thing, like the synopsis. A man is mugged and beaten by two young women who take his money from his wallet. A friend stops besides the beaten man who's prone on the sidewalk. The passerby hands him a business card for Brokeback Karate. He enrolls, but at first, he's a poor student. His sensei emphasizes pelvic thrusts. Will this mentoring lead to any changes in our man's life? What about the muggers? Like, it sounds so fucking bad.
It's like people were just taking the name and trying to
capitalize off of
on
this
the success.
Yeah, but I mean, I never would have imagined I would have run into that much stuff that had Brokeback attached to it. But okay, so from the top, Jake Gyllenhaal, Jack Twist, amazing actor. Mm-hmm. Heath Ledger as Enos Del Mar, he was fucking amazing. So Michelle Williams was Enos's wife, Alma. Mm-hmm. I thought she was really, really good.
She was good.
Like, as playing, the wife of
someone who didn't really love you.
Yeah, not only that, but it's like she's just so fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And I think she played the part really, really well. You have Randy Quaid before apparently he went fucking crazy.
Yes. Well, he might have been crazy then, but he really showed his crazy eventually.
Yeah, it really, really came out. And then here's the parts that surprised me because when we started talking about it in the beginning, so you had Anne Hathaway as the wife of Jack. It had David Harbour, who is, I guess, better known as Hopper in Stranger Things.
Yeah, and he's also Hellboy in the remake or whatever.
Yep.
Anna Faris has been in a few, it was like the scary movies or whatever is what I kind of know her from, but she's been in other stuff.
Yeah.
Was married to Chris Pratt for a while.
Yeah, and she was in that one movie that Amber really likes watching that has Ryan Reynolds in it. Forgiveness. It's more than saying sorry.
Yeah, Friend Zone? Something like that. Something akin to that.
I can't remember. And I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah.
Then you had Linda Cardellini, and that was the one that really surprised me because when I saw her, like when I watched it the first time, I don't think I really recognized her.
I didn't know who she was. I wouldn't have known who she was until Grandma's Boy, because at that point in time, it's like, hey, that girl in Grandma's Boy is Velma in the Scooby-Doo movie. A movie I think I've seen Scooby-Doo once.
Yeah. Yeah, but she was so good.
She was.
Yeah, she was such a good Velma. But yeah, like when I watched it this time, I was like, holy fuck, that's Linda Cardellini, and like it really kind of stuck with me. And then you had a young Kate Mara,
which when I saw her, well, like when she was, I guess she played Enos's daughter, like all grown up, and I didn't. Like, I looked at her and like, I recognized her from something. So when I looked her up, she was in Fan Four Stick. And I'm like, that's probably where I know her from.
Fan Four Stick. Such a good movie.
It's
And the only other person that I recognized from the cast, just in my limited movie watching, was Graham
Beckel.
Graham Beckel as L.D. Newsom.
Was that Linda Cardellini's father?
I think that was the father of because we don't get to see Linda Cardellini's father. I think we get to see Anne Hathaway's father.
Okay, Anne Hathaway. That's who it was.
Yeah, and I think that's who he was. And he's like, I can't name anything else that he's been in off the top of my head, but
he's just one of those guys that looks familiar. I think.
Well, he's that guy. It's like when you see him, it's like, oh, it's that fucking guy.
Which, I mean, there was that one satisfying scene with him in it too, where like they're at the Thanksgiving table, and like the game's on, and
sit your old ass down.
Yeah.
I'm cutting this fucking turkey.
It's like the father's like, I guess Jack's just not very standoffish or whatever, so the father's always like trying to take control.
Yeah.
And the kid's watching football, and the mom's like, why don't you just pay attention to that thing? And the kid's not listening to her. So he gets up, turns off the TV, and then the father's like, I'm watching the game, goes over and turns it back on. And,
you don't need your eyes to eat. Yeah. And then basically he's used to being the alpha.
Yeah. So but like when he's going back to like, Jack just walks over, turns the TV off again, and the father's like, I'm just going to go turn it back on. He's like, sit your ass down. You're a guest at my house.
Yeah. And then you could tell, like, Anne Hathaway's character is like, oh, he's finally putting him in his fucking place.
Just kind of like, you're in my house.
Yeah.
Sit the fuck down.
Yeah.
Eat your goddamn turkey. And then he starts cutting the turkey, and that's very satisfying. I think it's like the last scene we see the father, and that kind of like puts a nice little wrap on their relationship, and
it
makes Jake maybe a little bit more assertive.
Yeah, you could tell he's probably on his way out after that, because it does like a big time hop, and I think they're like super old, and they're like he's got the grizzled mustache with like the fucking gray and everything.
Yeah, and it's like I think right before the last time Jack and Ina saw each other, maybe, where they kind of have like a breakdown, like, dude, we could just be happy, and he's like, oh, I got shit I need to do. I can't just be happy.
I got to drive these cattle, but it's like, dude, come on.
I got all this stuff. I have to earn a living, and then I could be happy later.
Well, I think that was the point where he told the story of, like, my father took me down to the ditch and, like, saw this guy that was drugged by his dick until it fell off. And, like, he's like, I'm not even sure if my dad was, like, the person who did it.
The one who did it, yeah.
But, like, that was his fear. Like, and I think that was the other thing I took from the movie that, like, I guess really hit me now that I'm a dad is, like, we can really fuck up our kids with our fears.
Yeah, okay.
If you dump a lot of your fears into your children, then they're unnecessarily afraid of stuff that you're afraid of, like, because we don't let them live their lives or experience life for themselves, and then they go through fucking life broken people because I don't know, it's hard for me to explain, but it's like I made a promise to myself on some of these things where it's like I'm not going to do that to my son. I'm going to try not to do that. Jack, if you're watching this video in the future, I hope I was a good dad. I'm trying not to break you. I'm trying to let you be a free spirit and do whatever you want to do, but I gotta have an iron hand with you because you're very willful, and I'm not gonna let you fall off the back of the couch just because you want to. But yeah, it's. I mean, I don't have a whole hell of a lot more to say about the movie other than, it's a brilliant flick, and I know that the way I've been talking about it, I probably should have been like, it's a 9. It's a good movie. It's a heartbreaking movie. And I think that's why I don't give it a higher rating. It's just when I watch movies, I want to be happy. Yeah,
that's also when I don't foresee myself going back and watching on multiple occasions. It's like I watch it, it's good. I'm glad it's a nice one to have watched. But am I gonna like in a year time being like, man, I really want to be sad today. I'll just throw in Brokeback Mountain real quick and get all sad.
No, you're right. But I mean, I think the biggest thing I like about it is it's another bookend in Heath Ledger's life to let you know, like, that this guy was the real fucking deal. And when he got some good roles, he fucking slayed it. Like this, I was so unappreciative of this guy's acting ability.
How you just compared Enos to Joker, and how different of characters they were.
Yeah, vast opposite sides of the spectrum.
It's even just like the full, like his I guess, was he Texan? No, Jack was a Texan.
Yeah, he was.
But like Texas. where Enos had that kind of deep accent where like a lot of times I'm like, oh, what the fuck is he saying?
Yeah. So I was watching the movie on Plex server, and like I had to. It was one day when I was sick last week when I watched it for the second time, and like I finished watching the movie probably about 20 minutes before Amber came home from work, and she came in and like she was going to go put it on YouTube, and like I forgot to turn. I had to jack the TV all the way up to 100 because the volume was so muted on the Plex server. So like every time he'd learn to talk, it was
or he's talking low and heavily accented, and you're like, what the fuck did you say?
I actually so at the end of the movie, when he's staring at the shirt, says something like "Damn you, Jack" or something like that. But it's like you said, so low. He's whispering it and he's saying it in that accent. I literally found myself turning on the subtitles just to catch some of what he was saying every now and then. But that was the character. It was fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. It's just kind of like he's what he was there versus what he was when he's playing like the Joker, and like completely different.
Yeah.
You wouldn't place those to be the same characters.
Yeah, but like that was my biggest takeaway from the flick, is that it's just when you just be happy. Just live your life and be fucking happy. Stop worrying what other people think. Whatever you think society thinks you should be, there is a crowd out there for who you want to be.
I think the second bit of advice is much easier than just be happy. Is stop, like, if you can, stop giving a shit what you can what other people think, and you'll get there eventually. I think if like you're young and like you can't stop thinking about what other people think about you, eventually you're gonna get older and you're just gonna be so fucking tired of caring what other people think of you. You'll just stop, and then it's liberating, and you can kind of do the stupid shit you liked. I mean, I was always, when I was young, kind of unapologetically me, for whatever that was worth. Because I grew up like in the 80s and 90s where liking D&D. I mean, it's going through a renaissance now where liking D&D is cool. I got made fun of relentlessly for that shit.
Dude, it's like when growing up with the name Lance in the 80s, like it was always assumed by most of the teenagers I was around that I was gay.
Yeah.
Like, so, and then I had brothers that, you know, like my older brother wasn't around much because he moved out of the house when I was young, but like my middle brother, he lived that life where, you know, like I remember him telling me a story about him going down to the Fox Theater and like beating up a bunch of gay people that were doing Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true or not because, you know, I was young, but like that made me scared.
Yeah.
So, I've got a history of sexual abuse in my background when I was younger. So like that made me like super fucking paranoid to show any part of myself to the world. It was a very confusing time. But the one thing I have figured out the older I've gotten is if you are hiding who you are from people that you think love you, they don't really love you. Like, or you don't understand who you're around. If you find people who love you for who you are, you can be yourself. If you're worried about how your friends will react if you tell them certain things, they're probably really not your friend. And if you do tell them and they react negatively, I mean, just love people for who they are. We are all wonderfully weird and different tapestries. And like, you don't want to be on the wrong side of 60 looking back at your life like what I could have had, but this is what I settled for. Just fucking be you and just try and accept and love the people that are in your life
as much as you can, anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes it's going to be hard for like that 14-year-old kid with a parent who would kick him out of the house to come out, just get through your high school.
Yeah,
and get out of there when you can.
Yeah, and I know there are kids that get kicked out of the house when they're like very young because that's I know. I remember when I was younger, there was a kid at my daycare that used to play with Barbies, and I remember like hearing his mom talk about like how she was really worried that he played with Barbies and stuff like that. I don't know what ever came of it, but I feel like we're slowly moving into an era where we can actually have the conversation of like just letting people be people. Like I'm super happy about the world is starting to basically very, very slowly, especially in America, where we're trying to be more acceptive of like who people are.
Yeah, I think we're getting the kind of death throes of the other side, as it were.
Well, see, but that's the thing.
The death throes are violent, as it were, and kind of like reactionary and kicking back, and hopefully it'll go away. I
had an epiphany, and like, I know that someone's probably said it better than me, but it's like ideals. Your beliefs can change in a day with an epiphany. And you can have a change of heart, but you cannot change the world in a day. That happens over lifetimes. And I believe that we hit a point several years ago where it was like people were tired of hiding who they were and being threaten to be beat up, or, you know, they just wanted to be who they are. You have kids committing suicide because they're confused on who they are, and they feel like people around them can't accept them.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's a fucking tragedy. And I'll just go ahead and say it. If you're a person who's watching this and you're like, well, you know, my kid better not be gay, seriously, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
If you love your child, it doesn't matter if they're blue and from fucking Mars. You should love them anyways.
I mean, if they're blue, you need to worry that maybe they're not getting enough oxygen, and maybe you should call.
Okay, fuck you. I was trying to make a point, but I'm just, you know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
But yeah, no, yeah, definitely check the throat.
My kid's blue on the floor. Well, that's his choice.
I love you. It's your choice to be choking on the floor. Wait, no, you just found a chicken bone. Okay, I need help. But no, I think it took me a long time to basically come to that conclusion. Yeah. And there are still there are things about me and my life that I hide from people only because, like, religion. I'll just go ahead and say it. Like, I've pretty much been an atheist for most of my life, mm-hmm. like from 13 on, even though I was raised in like a heavily Roman Catholic household. But it's like,
it was 14 or 15 for me, I think.
Really?
I'd always been essentially agnostic, whatever. But it was this kind of one day I was sitting in class, had the epiphany, I'm like, oh shit. And then from then on, and it's usually not the thing I bring up with people just because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, well, it's the best piece of advice my father ever gave me is he said, if you want to retain friends, don't talk about politics or religion. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I fell out of it was when I was 13 years old. I remember my dad coming over to my house one night. My mom and my dad were divorced. My dad came over. It was my 13th birthday. And my dad came over and he gave me a shotgun that he bought me for my 13th birthday because he wanted to start taking me like hunting and stuff mm-hmm. like that. And I still have the shotgun to this day that I'm planning on passing to my kid. And he had a Garfield thing that you like, the ones you stick in the back of your windshield that's like hanging on.
Little suction cups.
Yeah. And he handed me the shotgun, and my dad, like, I came out to the car. It was nighttime. I think it was around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And because they were divorced, like, my dad sat out in the driveway. I went out in the driveway, sat in the truck with my dad, and he said, here's a shotgun for your birthday. Happy birthday. I love you. And he goes, and here's a Garfield that's from your grandmother that she wanted to give you. And I'm sorry to let you know she passed. And, like, that was just, talk about highs and lows, because I loved my Gaga so much. Mm-hmm. And, like, it was just kind of like, what? And I know there are people watching this right now. It's like, you lost your grandma, and that's where you fell out of fucking religion. You know, mm-hmm. like, but to me, that was earth-shattering, because she was the reason we went to church. And because she believed. And then, yeah, we just never went after that. And I believe, I'm not really atheist because I believe that, I guess I'm more agnostic. I believe that there's something out there. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a higher intelligence in charge of what's going on, because my mind can't wrap around the idea that we live in a fucking universe of a galaxy of chaos. And it's just happenstance. There has to be some kind of fucking intelligent design going on. But, like, ultimately, if there's a God, I don't think we're smart enough to know what the fuck it wants, or even if it knows we're here. Like, I've honestly, since I was a teenager, I believe that we're like an atom in a body of a giant that, you know, that just doesn't know we're here.
The ending of Men in Black or whatever. Here's the galaxies on Orion's belt.
Right, and on the pendant of a cat. Yeah, mm-hmm. Like I've. If atoms are as small, and I'm not a science person, but like if the universe is all about size mm-hmm. and everything like that, like we've got to be in the body of something bigger, because if the galaxy is expanding, I feel like it's in a kid that's growing, and that's why the galaxy is expanding. And then eventually it's going to die, and then that's going to be like the end of existence, and then, you know, the reawakening in like a different body. And I think that's also the reason why I think there's like different universes or like different planes of existence, because we're just different atoms in different bodies. I really wish I still smoked weed.
Yeah, I was going to say, you did a lot of drugs when you were a kid.
Yeah, I did a lot of drugs in my 20s. But yeah, no, it's just, and that's just ultimately what I wanted to say at the end of this, is just be who you are.
All right. So I have a small anecdote, I guess. Is I worked at Barnes & Noble in the music department, where we would deal with CDs as well as DVDs eventually. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Brokeback Mountain came out on DVD, like these two guys came in. It could have been like Enos and Jack. Like, that kind of cowboyish. They had on like cowboy hats, and they walked over, and you could tell like they went over and were kind of like looking at the DVD, and one of them picked them up, and he's like, "Is that the one you want?" He's like, "Yeah," and they kind of came up and bought it from me, and I'm like, it's cute because I'm like, this movie was made for those guys right there,
Right.
and it was just kind of made me slightly happy, and that like this movie was made for somebody, and they found it, and it was made for like just them.
Right. Yeah. And see, that to me is part of the tragedy is like that's it was made for them,
but they look like they were together, and I think they were living. They look happy, which is nice.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have been, because the story starts out in like the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if it started out in the 80s, maybe by now, like they would have been like, oh shit, maybe we should be together, and then something would have been different.
Right.
And it was just the time that they were born. They were born a bit too early or something like that. Maybe they could have been happy a little bit later on.
And it's just every time I think, like watching that movie the second time, I was like, why did you do this to yourself again? Like it's just why do you? It was just it's a fucking Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
Like just watching these people just live these. I wouldn't say horrible lives because Jack was
just unhappy.
Yeah, Jack was doing
unfulfilled.
Yeah, like I think that was the other thing is like Enos had 2 girls, and I think there was a third kid at that point.
I think
he had a boy.
He had 3 kids. No, I think he had only girls, and Jack had 1 boy.
Yeah, but it's like you don't hear hardly anything about the fucking kids.
No,
because
it's not about them.
Yeah,
and also, I mean, Enos didn't seem to care that much, other than the fact that he was working to take care of his family, so he was always working because that's what he was supposed to do, I guess.
Yeah,
it's kind of like he was told, "You man the house, like work," so he worked.
I remember when I was younger, my dad told me, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Just find a woman you don't like and buy her a house." I was kind of like, "That's marriage," you know. Like I remember my dad telling me that when I was a kid. I think he was joking, but I remember him saying that. And then like watching this movie, like that thought kept coming back up in my head, where it's like this guy's literally living the life that my dad was talking about.
Just get married because you're supposed to. Have kids because you're supposed to. And go to work because you're supposed to.
This is
all this stuff because you're supposed to.
Yeah, this is what you're expected to do.
Yeah.
You live, you eat, you pay taxes, you procreate, you die. But yeah, it's just, you know, you have this, like, I couldn't tell you hardly anything about fucking Jack Twist's son because, like, they don't talk about him that much. The only time I think you ever see him is that thing on Thanksgiving.
There's a couple other ones, like after he was born and the father came in and kind of like dismissed Jack, and it was just kind of
your grandma's face.
Yeah.
And
it's like, hey Jack, fuck off! I'm gonna look at our grandkid.
Yeah, it's just so bad.
Yeah,
and he had to be the first one to hold the kid. It was just like, I wanted to kick that dad's ass. So
he
bad.
said he fucking sucked.
Yeah, he was so bad,
which made that Thanksgiving scene so satisfying.
Mm-hmm. So, is there anything else you want to know?
No, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend Brokeback Mountain to people?
God, yes. I would, especially if seriously. And I could not be more adamant about saying this. If this is a movie you have not seen, and for any reason, if you've gotten to this point in the video...
Yeah, because we didn't really talk plot-wise about the movie, per se.
Well, I
mean, other than a couple key things about, like, it's a tragedy, so it doesn't end positively.
No. But, like, it's worth a watch. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be one you're going to break out of the shelf every year, like you said? Probably not. Mm. But it is a cinematic, in my opinion, a cinematic masterpiece because it so aptly captures the fucking human condition in that time period when you're living a life that you...
Living a lie?
Yeah. Like, and how miserable everyone can be fucking around you. Like, even, like, and that's the other thing. Like, Jack's parents at the end of the movie, like, when Enos goes into their house, you could tell, like, the dad is probably, like, one of those people, but, like, he even, like, he's just kind of, like, you could tell he's probably more torn up about how the outcome was instead of what was actually happening.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he cared about his kid all that much, whereas the mom was just kind of, like, sad.
Yeah.
Which is, like, even when... Like he went out, or when he just went up to Jack's room and came back down with like the shirt or whatever. The mom was just kind of like, "Oh, do you want a bag for that?" And it's going to wrap it up for him and handed it to him. Like she seemed caring.
Well, it's like even the dad when he first walked in, he's like, "Yeah," he said he wanted his ashes buried up on Brokeback Mountain, and that's when Enos tells him, "Yeah, we were cowboys up there together."
That's how we were camping buddies or fishing mates or whatever. Yeah. And I'll take his ashes up there. He's like, "No, we're just going to put him in the family plot."
Yeah, he needs to be in the family plot, and it seems like at first he doesn't give a shit if he takes the ashes up there, and then when like Enos reveals, "I was the guy." that was up there on Brokeback with him, and then at the end he's being buried in the family plot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, okay, but you could tell like the mother is just like, you can come back anytime you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's just, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And the human condition is we all fucking die eventually. So just try and love the people that you're with. Try telling people that you love them. Try to be yourself, because that's ultimately, if they care about your well-being, if they care about who you are, they just want you to be happy. And if anybody makes you feel miserable for being you, seriously, that person can go fuck themselves. And that's all I gotta say about it.
All right. So what I recommend in this movie? Probably be ready to be sad, I suppose. You have to be in a certain mood to watch tragedies. At least I do. I'm not always in a drama mood per se.
I agree with you, but it's like every now and then I do like a little bit of realism.
It makes you feel shit.
Yeah, and it's fun watching dude like shoot fucking zombies in the face with space lasers and shit like that.
Yeah, just
but
some mindless shit versus stuff that actually stuff that doesn't touch your emotions in the least bit, and it's just kind of like eye candy.
Yeah. Versus
the stuff that actually like hits you in the feels.
Yeah, every now and then it's good to get a nice gut punch. That's all I'm saying. But anyways,
I mean, a pair of people that gave it 7s, and this movie ain't made for us.
No, and yeah, just go out and watch the movie. But all right, you got anything else to say about it?
I think that's about it.
All right, I think we could put a bow in this one. So happy Pride Month. Just go out and be you, the wonderful person that you are. And if you're not being you, just go ahead and try it.
Or don't. You don't have to be you. Some people don't. Some people want to live in their little hovels, and that's fine too.
I feel like
I would never berate a person for just saying, "I'll stay home and not do anything."
I mean, that's not what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But just kind of like, I'm never going to berate a person for, like, I'm not ready. It's like, then you don't have to be ready.
I just feel like you don't have to be ready. You could do whatever you want to. But all I'm saying is that I feel like this world is fucking miserable right now because we're living these lives of illusion, and the world could be just a much happier place. Because like I really and truly feel like we're living on the fucking brink of extinction at this point. And I know that every generation before me has probably thought that.
Yeah, it seems like every generation thinks that they're in the end times.
Right.
Yet still we persist. And I think things will get better. They might get worse before they get better.
It has to.
They'll get better.
It has to. We need more acceptance. We need more love. We need more compassion. We need more empathy. So go out and try and be that person. Just a little bit. Just see how it feels. But anyways.
Right.
All right.
I guess join us next week for something else.
Yeah, we don't know what's the next holiday that's coming up.
Juneteenth. We'll have something up for that.
Yeah,
and at least that's the current plan. Hopefully, we'll get something up in time.
We've got something picked. We're not gonna say it. We'll surprise you.
I think we might have said it already in a previous video, but
did we?
We might have, but it's also again if we have time to get to it because it'll be a bonus episode as opposed to it would be a bonus Sunday episode instead of one of the normal Monday ones. Okay. So, is there any questions we want to throw down to the comments to get people talking?
Yeah, like what do you think happened with Jack? Like I want people's feedback. Like, do you think that happened, or do you think with the story that Anne Hathaway gave? Like, I want to know what your thoughts are on what happened there, and
maybe other movies that you resisted watching just because you didn't think it was free, but then you watched it and it was amazing.
Yeah, expand our fucking library. Like, tell us.
Give us some like. Here's for a lot of the times like people talk about like the popular Oscar-winning movies. I tend just to avoid those. Mm-hmm. If it wins an Oscar, it's probably not for me. So things like Revenant, Artist, stuff like that. I've never gone back to watch any of those particular movies because award-winning to me means it's a
fuck all.
It's a rich person jerk-off movie or whatever.
I went through a period where I was like, if these movies won Oscars, like, best film, I decided I was going to find every best film every year and go and start watching them. And then I hit, like, Citizen Kane and was like, nope. That was not, to me, it's not a good movie. I know there are people that are going to be like, oh my God, it was such a good movie. Citizen Kane was not a good movie to me. So that, like, ended my venture on that.
Yeah, so I guess just give us surprisingly liked movies, as it were. Mm-hmm. It's like, I went to this movie, thought it was going to be awful. Like, your expectations were low, but they delivered 2 or 3 fold.
The feels.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I think that's it.
All right. So, join us next week.
Or don't. But please do.
We're good guys. Come on.
We can't quit you.
All right.
Bye.